10:07, 7 past 10, hour number 2 of Bruce and Dan Show.
Jake Hartford and John Cassin, WLS 890. We've got something going on, and it's not a pigskin. It has nothing to do with the pigskin, Detroit, the Monsters of the Midway.
Talking about the Giant Game 7 tonight against the Cardinals.
There you go.
That if we had that high-speed
Horse
train,
high.
we can go see the World Series down
Horse
in
high.
St. Louis. Now, the debate is on tonight. The third presidential debate has to do with foreign policy. KT McFarland will join us in a few minutes, and we're going to talk to her. One of the big stories this weekend about this whole Benghazi thing was the release of documents by California Representative Issa.
Right, Daryl Issa.
And all the Sunday morning shows were attacking him. How could he do it? Release those documents, putting people at risk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He finally came out yesterday and said enough is enough. He said the documents that he released were not classified documents. They were unclassified documents. And he said, number two, anybody who the administration thought should not be identified, take the names out. And they said they had 2 weeks to do it, and they didn't take anything out. They said, here you go. We're fine with this.
See, this is about process now. It's about it's not about what happened anymore. It's about who may have overstepped on the reaction to what happened. And the point is, if you're dealing with what happened, those are facts about whether it was the video or not, and how the ambassador and 3 other Americans were killed. The second issue is the one the media loves, which is who stepped over the line, who said what, how did they handle it, how did Romney handle or not handle his opportunity during the last debate, and that is obnoxious, and it is also misleading.
And you also have, speaking of members of the media, you have members of the media like Joe Klein and some others who went on the Sunday morning shows, and they said this whole Benghazi isn't even worth anything to talk about.
Of course. Turn it off. Let's watch the Bears. Forget about it. Don't watch. Nothing here to see. Nothing here to see. You know what?
Because
Joe Klein, take the tinfoil, put a tinfoil hat on Joe, because then David Axelrod won't get into your brain. That's what we do here.
David Axelrod was on one of the shows yesterday.
And he was doing the same thing, right?
Was he speaking for the campaign or speaking for the administration?
He was speaking for truth and beauty. And basically the message from Axelrod, Rahm Emanuel, and Dick Durbin, fresh off the 110-mile-an-hour train ride, was what exactly? Basically, if you bring up Libya, you're going to get your butt handed to you, right?
There is an administration official who did not wish to be named, was quoted in Foreign Policy magazine, who said that there was a Libyan human rights activist named in one of the cables that was released by ISA that was not publicly, and this person was not publicly associated with the U.S. in any other way, and it was a danger to her life. Well, ISA said, back in December, she was an official guest of the State Department as part of an international visitor program, and it was all over online, documenting the trip and all that. So it's not like that really was a big secret. So I don't. I understand there's political stuff to be done, because this is like the economy. This is like be president. Back 4 years ago when Hillary and Barack Obama were going at it, that was remember the 3:00 phone call.
I give you a name. His name is Dr. Shakil Afridi. You ever hear of him?
No.
He's the one that was leaked out by the Obama administration. He's the guy who pointed out where to find bin Laden. And his
Did he ever
name
get
was
his $25 million?
He's doing 30 years to life in a hellhole in Pakistan. Okay? That's where he is. Thank you, American government. So when the Obama administration wants to talk about leaking, think of Dr. Afridi.
John on the South Side. Good morning, John, on the Tri-State.
How are you guys doing today? It's an honor to talk to you guys.
It would be, yes.
Yes, of course, Mr. Jake. I was just, it popped into my head that, tonight's Monday Night Football in Game 7, Romney will never take California. He'll never get Illinois. He ought to say, well, Mr. President, I'd rather be watching the Lions beat the Bears or the Cardinals beat up on the Giants. We'll throw a little spin that way. And then after he softens them up a little bit, he ought to go, hey, what were you thinking when you gave the bust of Churchill back to England And what did you mean when you asked Medved? Tell Putin that I'll be a little more flexible after this election nonsense.
Well, maybe he was trying to get the message to Putin that he'd have more time in the second term, and then he can go, hang gliding with them and stuff like that.
Just hanging out together,
Yeah.
having a couple of sodas. John brings up a point, though. Here's another thing I'd like Romney to ask. What do you think of this, Jake? President Obama, the President of the United States, doesn't usually bend from the waist and put his head down when he meets heads of state. But you see those pictures on the internet today?
Over the years, the president appears to be bowing.
Just like a drinking bird.
But that's the natural body position when you're shaking hands with somebody who is taller than you but you think is shorter. You think you have to bow.
Oh, like the Japanese emperor?
You think you have to, go low to shake the hands, thinking they're shorter than you, but when they're really tall as you, it doesn't look right.
Mr. Obama, the President of the United States, does not bow to the King of Saudi Arabia, the Emperor of Japan, the boss of the Ukraine, or Hugo Chavez. You do not bow, sir, and drop your head down like some peasant happy to be alive, so they won't cut your head off. You are the president. You stand with your shoulders back and look them in the eye, not bow? What is that? Jake, help me.
Marianne in Wooddale. Good morning, Marianne.
Good morning, Jake. Good morning, John. I'm listening, and every single thing the two of you are saying today is absolutely true, and you should add one thing to it. Everything that the both of you have said just goes to prove how incompetent Obama and all of his minions are. Totally incompetent.
Thank you, Marianne. It's what it is the policy. And that's why when they were talking about why they didn't get additional security over the 6 months, it was the policy. You don't want to. The administration apparently didn't want to have a show of like Libya was occupied by the American forces. So you didn't want to have a lot of security, a lot of people in military uniforms.
You mean kind of like when Clinton did not want to have heavy armor and tanks in Mogadishu, so Americans got their butts shot off. Thanks, President Clinton. You mean like that, where it's about cosmetics, it's about look, it's about PR, not about actual power and strength.
We want to be loved. We want to be loved. We want to be loved in Afghanistan. There's a report this morning that according to the U.S. military leaders, not the Taliban, but the Al-Qaeda is making a comeback in Afghanistan.
And we're not even gone yet.
We're not even gone yet, and they can't wait for us to get out, and they're coming back. We're going to have KT McFarland, and when we come back, it's 10:15, time for Traffic on the Fives right here on 89 WLS. John Cass, Jake Hartford in for Bruce and Dan. Before we go to KT McFarland, let's go to Schaumburg and Tom. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, gentlemen. And my thought was that Romney ought to ask the president, why was your very first reaction to the news of Benghazi to apologize to the terrorists for a video that was allegedly made by an American? And then your next reaction was to unleash the full power of the FBI to go after, not the terrorist, but go after that SOB that made the video. You're not fit to serve.
Well, the first thing, just to be sure, on the apology, what started this whole deal was reaction to the video by the embassy in Cairo when they started to apologize for the video. And if you saw, Bill Richardson was on one of the shows, a former UN ambassador, he was governor of New Mexico. Mm-hmm. He was going after Romney for coming out with the press release before we knew all the facts in Benghazi. Except when the press release came out, there was no Benghazi at that point.
Why would a sitting president apologize for any American exercising his or her right?
Well, that was, Tom, that was the original position Tuesday evening, 5 o'clock Chicago time, when that was the only story out. Up until then, there was no attack in Benghazi. It was just the demonstrations at the Cairo embassy and the embassy in Cairo tweeting apologies for it.
Actually, this started before the video. It started on September 11th, years ago, when Al-Qaeda attacked the United States.
Yes.
And that this group is an Al-Qaeda client, an Al-Qaeda front, and they attacked Benghazi once the Cairo, the Cairo display happened. They may have used it as a cover, but this was not spontaneous, and it was a terrorist attack. Our people were killed, and since that time, the Obama administration has been playing games. They're going to throw some really hardworking mid-level people under the bus to protect the president, who basically did not want to mention that there were terrorists because it conflicted with his politics.
So your thinking is that this whole thing of not sending security in was done for the purpose of proving that there was no Al-Qaeda because bin Laden was dead. And if we had beefed up security in that embassy, it would have disproved the theory.
I can't say to that, but you know what? In a few minutes down the road, we're going to have, at the half hour, we're going to have Katie McFarland on. And I really respect her and her analysis. She's not just a reporter. She worked in foreign policy and defense for years, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. But in the meantime, you want to take a couple calls?
No.
Okay, we're not taking calls.
Steve in Hammond. Good morning, Steve. You're on 89 WLS.
Yes, I would like to know why the president isn't having a wholesale firing of everybody around him for letting him go out and make a fool of himself and a fool of the United States for 14 days, saying it was some video. I mean, is he now going to ask Hillary Clinton to resign and take her resignation and fire her, as well as all the rest of them, and let him go out and make a fool out of us?
Now you're just politicizing this, Steve. Don't you? I think we have to wait until the full report comes out in a couple years before we can even talk about this.
If I let a boss of mine go out and make a fool of himself the way that he had, I can guarantee you that every job that I was ever at, I would have been summarily fired and carried out feet first.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, what's going to happen is the big bosses aren't going to get hurt. And the people on the ground, Foreign Service officers, intelligence analysts, the people who really do the work, somebody's going to get burned for it. And that's not good for morale, and it's not good for the United States. Somebody up on top should step up.
Ahmed Abu Katawa, he's an alleged terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
He's on video during the attack, during the whole thing. And, we had drones up. We finally got the drones up that night. And not only did they have the live audio as it was happening, the attack, for 6 or 7 hours, they had a drone up there feeding live video. Well, anyway, Ahmed Abu Katawa, we haven't found him yet. Our FBI or our military, whoever's looking for him, hasn't found him yet. But the New York Times did. And when they found him, he was drinking a fancy little drink. And the New York Times got the drink wrong.
Well, was it an Orange Julius?
They had to do a correction. They said he was drinking a strawberry frappe, not a mango juice, at a hotel in Benghazi, as he originally had ordered.
That's so ridiculous to run a correction like that, but that's New York Times.
But they found him.
Yeah.
Here I am.
And guess what? At about what time does the debate start?
8 o'clock.
So then at 7:55, if you happen to be in the desert someplace in North Africa, I'd suggest nobody, ride around in the open, because somebody's going to get lit up right then.
10:21, back after this.
That's terrible.
89 WLS. Have a story we need to know about? Call the 89 WLS News Tip Hotline at 312-236-0507.
10:28.
John Cass, Jake Hartford in for Bruce and Dan on 89 WLS.
Charlotte in Arlington Heights. Good morning, Charlotte.
Hi. I would ask the Obama campaign if they can assure us they're not getting Chinese donations. Investors Business Daily, October 9th, is U.S. democracy up for sale? Barack Obama has 2 websites with thousands of foreign visitors. They're being solicited for donations. They do not ask one question. Do you know what that is?
What's the question?
Can you legally contribute to an American political campaign? Foreign sources are prohibited.
No, well, there's nobody keeps foreign money out of campaigns more than they do.
And not only that, they're not asking for those 3 numbers on the back of the credit card internet donation, which prevent fraud.
Why is that, Charlotte? If you asked about the number, what would happen then? I guess
it would verify where it's coming from.
If it was coming from Indonesia or so forth.
It doesn't really matter.
It's all about the love.
They're
evolving.
All that matters is Election Day. All this other stuff is noise.
There are issues, but the bigger issue is who comes out to vote on Election Day. That's it.
Yeah. Although there was one TV station, and I believe in Arizona, they went on the air yesterday declaring Obama the winner. They made a mistake.
Before they took a shot.
They thought they
50-50.
They thought they were the Tribune.
No, it was another station, my friend.
Huh? Dewey beats Truman.
Actually, there were many many newspapers in 2004 that said Gore was the next president of the United States. But do you remember those?
Did they do a headline?
I think there were headlines. Yes, there were.
For sure, or do you think?
There were headlines. I'm taking a 50-50 shot there.
10:30, time for news, weather, traffic with Dave Stewart right here on 89 WLS.
There's no doubt about it.
When you want to know what the candidates are saying, turn to your Common Sense election headquarters, 89 WLS.
10:37, we remind you to join 89 WLS and AARP for an opinion leader forum on Medicare and Social Security this Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Union League Club of Chicago. The event is free, but you must pre-register, so go to the events page at WLSAM.com to reserve your seat. The debate is tonight. The third debate has to do with foreign policy. And joining us right now is Fox News national security expert, Katie T. McFarland. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning.
First question out of the box. I know there's a lot of stuff with Iran and all that. The whole timeline, not to get who knew what and where, but in previous administrations, because you worked in previous administrations, how would it have worked from the moment they knew in Benghazi that there was a problem? Who gets called? Who gets notified?
Well, it happened several ways. We pick it up on intelligence. Even if nobody called, we pick it up on intelligence. The CIA would pick it up. The NMCC, National Military Command Center, would pick it up. And so they would probably know something was wrong. The second way, though, and in this case as well, somebody from the consulate called the State Department and said something bad is happening. And at that point, they were able to, as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State said, we were able to follow it in real time. So in other words, they were either getting phone calls or pictures of what was going on. If they were getting phone calls, they could have asked for pictures from a satellite feed. So they knew within minutes something was going on. Now, they don't just sit there and in their offices wringing their hands. They call other people. So the White House would have known, the Defense Department would have known, the intelligence community would have known, not just the official at the State Department. And so my question is, why, when this thing went down, why did they not send in a rescue mission? They never did. They apparently sent in 2 aircraft to evacuate people who could get to the airport. But they knew our consulate was under attack, and they didn't try to rescue them.
Was that because they didn't have the people available?
I think it was 2 things. They didn't have the people available immediately there in Benghazi. They would have had people in Tripoli, and they certainly would have had rapid response teams, Delta Force kind of rapid response teams at the NATO bases in Rota, Spain, or in Sicily. So they could have gotten somebody there, maybe not within minutes, but certainly within hours. And again, they didn't know at the beginning whether they were going to be, this was an assault that would end up destroying the American consulate, taking people hostage. They just didn't know. So the prudent thing would have been to send people in at a minimum they could have sent people in. So the other question I have then is, why didn't they do that? One person who had talked to people on the ground, who had people who worked for him who were on the ground, said, well, they worried that if they sent anybody in, they'd have a Black Hawk Down situation. So they therefore decided not to send anyone in. But to me, that is just the height of cynicism, that Americans are on the ground being killed and attacked, and nobody goes to help them. When I was in the Reagan administration in the Pentagon, there was a bombing of American Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, and when that happened, And again, communications were nothing like they are today. Even then, it was all hands on deck, and so people rushed to try to see what they could do in a rescue mission.
And as you said in your blog, after there was a bombing of the Berlin nightclub in 1986, I believe.
1986, yeah.
What did President Reagan do?
Well, this was another incident. So I'm concerned that the intelligence prior to it was bad. The decision to not give additional security is poignant when you read the cables from the ambassador requesting more security. The fact that we didn't rescue them while the operation was ongoing. And then after the fact, what have we done? We've set up committees and commissions and we're bickering amongst ourselves. The president did not respond, and he should have. When I worked for Reagan, and the Libyans were known to have bombed a discotheque in Berlin that American servicemen and women went to, and American servicemen and women were killed and injured as a result. Within 10 days, Reagan bombed Gaddafi's compound and headquarters. And as a result of that, nobody heard from Gaddafi for about 20 years. But we've had no response at all, despite the fact that we know where the al-Qaeda training missions are in Libya. And the man who masterminded the Libyan assault is sitting around the swimming pool at a luxury hotel in Libya bragging about it.
But he didn't get his mango juice, as was reported.
He ordered,
the strawberry frappe.
Exactly. He was sitting, non-alcoholic mango juice or strawberry juice.
It's clear from your commentary and your writings on this subject that you think there's a cover-up going on.
Yeah.
And who pays for it? I mean, ultimately the American people do, obviously. But in the short term, do they throw mid-level and junior people under the bus and grind them up to delay it until after the election, and then it comes out? I mean, that's what worries me, because there are a lot of good people, as you know, in these agencies that risk their lives, and I think they're going to be cannon fodder here.
Yeah, I think that those good people, two things happen to those good people. One, the administration will try to cover it up and maybe throw them under the bus. But then that tends never to work because the mid-level people come out. They come out anonymously at first, but they turn whistleblower. And what you've seen in the last couple of days are cables from the State Department. Over 200 of them were released by a House committee this week, outlining and showing the requests of the intelligence people on the ground, the ambassador himself requesting additional security. So people will, the political people will try to throw the good men and women who are the career people under the bus. I don't think it'll work. But the question, though, is not just is it a cover-up, but why are they covering it up? I think they're covering it up because the whole Middle East policy is a failure. President Obama said 5 days before the September 11th attacks in Benghazi, he was at the Democratic Convention, he said, bin Laden is dead and al-Qaeda is on its heels. It's on the ropes. It's finished. And yet if they were able to launch an attack like that against Americans, they're hardly finished. Indeed, they're now in 30 countries. They weren't in 30 countries when President Obama took office.
We have about a minute left. What do you make of the reports over the weekend about discussions with Iran? Is there anything to that?
Well, I doubt there's anything to it. I'm sure the Obama administration would love to be able to announce some big breakthrough in diplomacy, but the risk that they have in doing that, unless they've got something nailed down, which they do not have, is that the Iranians then make fun of them and show them up. So I think that that's a very dangerous road to drive down.
Who would have leaked that?
I'm sure somebody from the administration leaked it.
To make them look good.
Last question: the files that Representative Issa released over the weekend. A lot of pushback from the Democratic side, saying that was a really bad thing to do. He came out last night and said they were not classified. What's your take on that?
The stuff I looked at was not classified. The stuff that it's sensitive. Putting something sensitive on the top of a document, that is not a classified document. That's just something that they hope doesn't leak out. But it's not a classified document that endangers lives and methods and missions.
And if they wanted to classify it, they could have redacted it, correct?
Sure, they could have redacted it. And whoever wrote the memos, the 200 memos, if they wanted to classify them, could have. They just didn't. They didn't think that they were classified documents.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time this morning. Tonight's the big debate in foreign policy, front and center.
You bet.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
I really like
Katie
listening to her.
McFarland from the Fox News national analyst, also ktmcfarland.com.
And former Reagan foreign policy person, really very, very precise and clear.
10:45, time for traffic on the fives right here on 89 WLS.
See what we're talking about at WLSAM.com. Plus, get the latest from the Weather Channel, on-demand traffic, photo and video galleries, and more. Everything you need is at WLSAM.com.
10:53.
John Cass and Jake Hartford in for Bruce and Dan.
Dan Rather thinks the Ohio GOP may steal the election, but the bigger story is
that he's not wearing that Afghani tribesman outfit like he did a few years ago.
Michelle Obama over the weekend told people at the University of Wisconsin in Wausau to vote early. You know, you can cast some places you can cast your vote now. She said, vote early because your toilet may be overflowing on election day. You have the same dumb look on your face as I had when I saw that.
How, Madam First Lady, how may we respond to that? What? She was misquoted, obviously.
No, she was quoted. Apparently there must be a big Republican campaign to overflow people's toilets or something. I don't know.
Or is it the small Gore toilets that are finally kicking into action?
I don't know. You would think it'd be get out and vote. Your vote counts. Vote early, vote often. I've never heard you better vote because your toilet may be overflowing.
I don't think the First Lady should discuss bodily functions.
And doesn't she have people for that anyway? 10:54 back after this.
89 WLS. The latest news from the nation and across the globe is just minutes away with ABC News. 89 WLS and WLSAM.com.
10:58, home stretch of the Bruce and Dan Show. I'm Jake Hartford with John Cass.
And I just want to thank you, Jake, for when last we spoke. There was
that was about 3 minutes ago.
A great political message. No, it was last week. A great political message.
Well, that wasn't the last time we spoke.
Well, it was the last week, whatever. Okay, Mr. Debater.
You columnists are all into words.
It was nice. You brought in the beer can chicken thing, and I just thought it was very funny and very gentle.
I had nothing to do with that.
Felt like a big hug.
A lot of people think he couldn't take it. He left as a poor sport.
Oh, no. You mean because I threatened to quit? I was just joking. I really had a good time.
The Twitter world was a tweet with your reaction,
yeah,
John.
Right, like they care.
Russia's got reaction coming up right now, preparing for the debate in a couple minutes, and then Rowan Roper, your ride home from 2 until 6 right here on 89 WLS. See you tomorrow.